I walked into my garage that Tuesday morning like I had 1,000 times before, but something felt off. The air was too quiet, you know? Then I saw it. The display case where my military medals had sat for 15 years was completely empty. Just a clean rectangle in the dust, and this bright pink sticky note that made my stomach drop. Thanks, honey. Needed the money. A. My name is Garrett Stevens. I'm 57 years old, and that morning pretty much destroyed everything I thought I knew about the woman I'd been married to for 18 years. Listen, you have to understand something about those medals. They weren't just pieces of metal collecting dust in some old case. Each one had a story. Nights spent in cargo bays, sandstorms that lasted for days, names of good soldiers who never made it home. I gave 22 years to the Army, worked my way up from private to master sergeant, did 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. Those medals represented every sacrifice, every moment I chose duty over comfort, country over myself. And Ashley, my wife, had sold them like they were old junk at a garage sale. So there I am, standing in my Mesa, Arizona garage, staring at that empty space, and something just snapped. Right there in the garage. For years, I'd been the provider, the protector, the guy who fixed things without making a big deal about it. Ashley's real estate business had been struggling since 2020. And yeah, I knew money was tight. But this crossed a line I didn't even know existed. The house felt different when I walked back inside. Ashley was at the kitchen table with her laptop, probably working on another listing that wouldn't sell. She looked up with that practice smile she used with difficult clients. "Morning, honey. You're up early." "Where are they, Ashley?" She blinked, but I caught that flicker of guilt in her eyes. "Where are what?" "My medals. The display case is empty." Nobody said anything for a while. Outside, a neighbor's dog was barking. And somewhere down the street, a pickup truck rumbled to life, normal sounds of a normal morning, except nothing about this was normal anymore. "Oh, those." She waved her hand like we were talking about old magazines. "I needed a deposit for the photographer. The business expansion, remember? You said we had to invest in ourselves. Those weren't yours to invest." "Garrett, they were just sitting there. It's not like you ever looked at them." "Wrong. Dead wrong. I looked at them every morning when I went to the garage, every single morning for 15 years. They reminded me who I used to be, what I'd accomplished, what I'd given up to serve something bigger than myself." "How much?" My voice came out quieter than I'd intended. 200. It was a good deal, considering they were just old. $200. 22 years of military service reduced to the price of a car payment. That's when our son Preston walked into the kitchen, 19 years old, home from his first semester at Arizona State. He took one look at us and knew something was seriously wrong. "Dad, what's going on?" I couldn't speak, couldn't find words that wouldn't turn the air toxic. So I just walked out, got in my pickup, and drove. Drove until that rage in my chest cooled down to something I could actually think through. When I got home that evening, I went straight to my computer, started searching. Took me maybe 20 minutes to find them, listed on eBay under Authentic Army Medal Set. Same tiny scratch on the case I'd noticed years ago. Same arrangement I'd set them in. Price, $200. Seller, Ashley Deals 23. My hands were shaking as I clicked through the photos. There was the Humanitarian Service Medal, the one from Syria, the Bronze Star from my second deployment to Iraq, the Combat Action Badge that still gave me nightmares some nights. All of it displayed like merchandise in some online flea market. I printed the listing and called Ashley over. She stood behind me, reading over my shoulder, and I felt her go very still. "You sold classified military honors," I said, pointing at the screen. "That humanitarian medal? It's got a restricted serial number, HUM-Z2QF-7843. I checked my records." Her face went pale. "What does that mean?" "Means you didn't just sell my memories, Ashley. You sold federal property. Property that was never supposed to leave government custody." That night, I called the Office of Special Investigations. Spoke to a Colonel Shane Rodriguez, who listened without interruption as I explained what had happened. When I finished, there was this long pause. "Mr. Stevens, we'll need to open a formal investigation. That serial number you mentioned, it's flagged in our system. Classified Syrian operations. Do you understand what this means?" I understood perfectly. My wife had committed a federal crime. "Colonel, I just want my medals back." We'll do everything we can, but Mr. Stevens, this is bigger than your medals now. We'll be in touch. I hung up and sat in my garage staring at the empty case. Preston found me there an hour later. "Mom's crying," he said quietly. "Says you called the government on her. Your mother called the government on herself when she stole classified military property. Dad, she didn't know. She knew they weren't hers to take." Preston sat down on my workbench, looking older than his 19 years. "What happens now? Now we find out what honor means in a courtroom. So anyway, I'm replacing Mrs. Rodriguez's bathroom faucet 2 days later when my phone starts going crazy. 5 missed calls from Ashley, 3 from Preston. I wiped my hands and called back. Ashley was hysterical. "They're here, Garrett. Federal agents. At our house. They have a warrant." Through the phone, I could hear official voices, car doors slamming. "Stay calm, Ashley. Do what they tell you." "This is your fault. You brought this on us." "No," I said quietly. "You brought this on yourself." An hour later, the whole neighborhood knew. Federal agents had arrested Ashley Stevens for theft of government property. By evening, somebody had posted a video online, my wife being led away in handcuffs, Preston standing on the porch looking like someone had punched him in the gut, neighbors gathering to watch the show. The video went viral overnight. Real estate agent steals veterans' medals was trending by morning. The comments were brutal. Some called her a traitor. Others blamed me for destroying my family over a few pieces of metal. They didn't get it. It was never about the medal. It was about what those medals represented. Honor earned through sacrifice, trust that some things are sacred, respect for the men and women who paid the ultimate price. Colonel Rodriguez called that afternoon. "Mr. Stevens, we'd like you to come to Washington. There are some things about this case you need to know. Never been to D.C. before. Hell of a place. Glass buildings that reflected the sky, marble corridors that echoed with every footstep." Colonel Rodriguez was younger than I had expected, maybe early 40s, with that quiet confidence that comes from years of dealing with messy situations. "Your wife's case has opened up a bigger investigation," he said, sliding a file across his desk. "That metal she sold? The buyer recognized the serial number and reported it immediately. Turns out he's a retired logistics officer from your old unit. Small world." I opened the file and saw photos of the eBay listing, federal forms, and something that made my stomach drop. Ashley's bank records showing she'd done this before. Smaller items, jewelry, things I hadn't noticed missing. "She's facing federal charges, Mr. Stevens. Theft of government property, trafficking, and stolen military goods. She could get 10 years. 10 years. I thought about Preston, about the business Ashley had worked so hard to build, about 18 years of marriage crumbling in a federal courthouse. "What do you need from me?" "Your cooperation. Full statement, testimony if it goes to trial. And Mr. Stevens, we'd like to offer you a position." "Sir?" "We're launching a national initiative to recover stolen military honors. Lost medals, stolen valor cases, illegal sales. You understand both sides of this, military service and civilian consequences. We need someone who gets it." I stared out the window at the city that runs the world. If it helps other veterans, it will. That night, I called Preston from my hotel room. He was staying with my brother in Tempe, trying to finish his semester while his world fell apart. "Dad, Mom's lawyer says she might take a plea deal. 5 years probation, restitution, ban from federal employment. 5 years probation versus 10 in prison. Not a bad deal, considering what she'd done." "How are you holding up, son?" "I don't know. I'm mad at her, but she's still my mom, and I'm proud of you, but this whole thing just sucks." "Yeah," I said. "It does suck. But sometimes doing the right thing costs more than you want to pay." The trial made national news. Not because it was complicated, Ashley pled guilty to all charges, but because it represented something bigger. Military families betraying military honor, the erosion of respect for service and sacrifice. I testified for maybe 20 minutes, mostly about the medal's significance and the classification level of the Syrian mission medal. Ashley's lawyer tried to paint her as a desperate woman who made one mistake under financial pressure. The judge wasn't buying it. "Mrs. Stevens, you violated the trust of your husband, your family, and your country. These medals represent sacrifice and service that you clearly don't understand or respect." Ashley got 18 months probation, $2,500 in restitution, and a 10-year ban from any federal employment. She also had to perform 200 hours of community service at the VA hospital in Phoenix, working with veterans who'd lost everything serving their country. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Ashley kept the house. I didn't want it anymore. Too many memories of that empty display case. I kept my construction business and moved into a small apartment near Luke Air Force Base, where the sound of fighter jets training reminded me that honor still meant something to somebody. My new job at the Pentagon's Lost Honors Recovery Initiative started that fall. Colonel Rodriguez had become a good friend, and working with him felt like finding purpose again. In our first year, we recovered over 400 stolen military medals and prosecuted 23 cases of illegal trafficking. The work meant something, but the real reward came in smaller moments. Phone calls from veterans who'd gotten their medals back. Letters from families grateful that their father's or grandfather's service was being protected. A system that actually worked to defend the things that should never be for sale. Preston graduated from ASU with a degree in criminal justice. Said my example had inspired him to become a federal investigator. Ashley and I rarely spoke, but when we did, it was civil. We'd destroyed our marriage, but we'd both learned something about consequences. Listen, working at the Pentagon changed everything for me. Colonel Rodriguez and I made a good team. He knew the systems, I understood people, he dealt with policy, I understood what loss looked like. During one late-night audit, I stumbled across something that made my blood boil. Over 600 similar cases. Families pawning medals, heirs selling what they never earned, scumbags trafficking in stolen military honors like they were baseball cards. I spent weeks drafting a 40-page proposal for a national medal tracking system. Rodriguez read it without saying a word, then looked up at me and said, "You're turning your worst day into a blueprint for integrity." Around that time, I got an email from Ashley, first one in months. "You could have stopped this if you cared. You're turning my mistake into your career." I didn't even finish reading it. Just hit delete and stared at the empty metal box sitting on my desk. Some reminders you keep around for a reason. A security officer dropped a sealed OSI report on my desk later that week. Ashley had been fined, barred from federal work for 10 years, and ordered to repay everything she'd earned from selling stolen property. Rodriguez's signature was at the bottom. I just sat there, breathing slower, not feeling much of anything. That night, the city lights shimmered across the Potomac. I opened my laptop and started typing a letter to the Secretary of Defense. It's not just about medals. It's about memory, service, and people who forget what those things mean. For the first time in months, I wasn't chasing peace. I was rebuilding purpose. 3 months later, I'm standing in the Pentagon's grand hearing room under lights bright enough to expose every flaw. The hearing was being streamed across federal channels. My name got called as a key witness on ethics and asset protection. Halfway through, movement in the back caught my eye. Ashley. Hair dark again, eyes hollow. Her lawyer spoke about misunderstanding, ignorance of classification laws. When he finished, I said calmly, "But she knew they weren't hers." The room went completely quiet. A committee member asked if I regretted reporting her. I looked straight ahead. If I'd stayed silent, I would have betrayed everyone who earned their honors the right way, including my own father. More silence before the chair finally nodded. During recess, Rodriguez brought me coffee. "You just changed how this department defines integrity." "No," I said. "I just reminded them what it looks like." That evening, the Defense Department appointed me National Director of Lost Honors Recovery. Outside, Ashley walked past but stopped. "I heard what you said about Dad. You were right." I nodded. That was enough. Later, alone in my new office, I hung the returned metal box on the wall, still marked with its faded red evidence tag. Rodriguez paused at the door. "You're keeping the tag?" "Yeah," I said, "because accountability isn't paperwork, it's character." The tag caught the light, proof that even damage, when you face it head-on, can become its own kind of honor. A year after the hearing, winter wrapped Washington in quiet white. Snow gathered along the Potomac, soft and slow. My apartment overlooked the river, still and cold, and on the shelf in my office sat the old metal box, its red evidence tag fading, edges worn smooth by time. The program had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Hundreds of veterans had found their medals again, families calling me a hero. But success never filled that quiet that waited for me each night. One morning, a postcard showed up. "I saw your interview. You did good. I'm proud, even if I can't say it out loud." My father's handwriting. First message in 2 years. I smiled but didn't cry. That was how he said sorry. That evening, a letter arrived from Ashley. Shaky handwriting, wrinkled paper. I finally understand what you were protecting. I didn't just sell medals, I sold your honor. I folded it and placed it beneath the box. Sunday, I went to Arlington, set a photo of us as kids against a nameless grave and whispered, I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I need peace. Snow fell again as I walked away. Justice repairs things. Forgiveness releases them. 2 years after the hearing, the Pentagon held its annual civil service honor ceremony. The hall sparkled under white lights, rows of uniforms, quiet expectation. I was scheduled to speak as director of the Logistics Accountability Division. Just before walking in, I learned Ashley had registered to attend. I stopped for maybe half a second, then just nodded. Some moments don't need permission. From the stage, I spotted her near the back. White blouse, hair tied low, no makeup. When our eyes met, she didn't look away. I began my speech. Accountability isn't punishment. It's the price we pay to be trusted again. And sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who remind us why integrity matters. The room went still. Somebody wiped a tear. After the ceremony, she approached me quietly. I can't undo what I did, she said, but I've been trying to live right. That's all it ever takes, I told her. Living right. We shook hands as cameras flashed. Next morning, the photo appeared across the Pentagon network with the caption, Family Integrity, the Stevens Family. My father saw it in the paper. He didn't call, didn't have to. That afternoon, neighbors watched him raise the old Air Force flag outside our house, the one he hadn't flown in 5 years. That night, I touched the metal box on my desk, red tag still faintly visible under the light. Still heavy, I whispered, but it's finally mine again. 5 years went by like that. I stayed in Washington, kept working to protect military honors, kept learning that sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought with weapons but with principles. Ashley remarried eventually, some civilian who understood that certain things have value beyond their price tag. Preston became an FBI agent, investigating white-collar crime back in Phoenix. He told me once that watching his parents' divorce taught him that integrity isn't negotiable. I never remarried. Came close once, with a nurse from Walter Reed who understood military culture and respected what those medals meant. But I realized I'd spent so many years defining myself through relationships, husband, father, provider, that I'd forgotten who I was, just as Garrett Stevens. Some lessons you can only learn by yourself. Spring sunlight was spilling through my office window one morning when a package arrived from Portland. Inside was a handmade replica of the humanitarian medal, cast in recycled bronze with a note that made my throat tight. Not a replacement, a reminder. Ashley. I smiled as my eyes watered. Rodriguez stepped in, older now but calm as ever. You kept both. Of course. One shows what I lost, the other shows what I learned. He nodded. Quiet victory, huh? The only kind worth having. The medals sit in their walnut case now, catching morning light through my office window. The old federal evidence tags are gone, replaced by small brass plaques explaining each award's significance. Visitors often ask about them, and I tell the story, not the bitter parts about betrayal and divorce, but the important parts about service and sacrifice, and the price of doing what's right. Because in the end, that's what those medals represent. Not perfection, not immunity from life's hardships, but the choice to serve something bigger than yourself. The commitment to stand up for what matters, even when it costs you everything you thought you valued. You know what I learned through all this? Ashley was wrong about one thing. They were never just old metal gathering dust. They were proof that honor doesn't expire, that integrity can't be discounted, and that some things will always be worth more than their selling price. But here's something else I figured out, something that took me years to understand. When I chose to report Ashley, I thought I was choosing my principles over my family. Turns out I was wrong about that too. I was choosing my principles over my comfort. My family, Preston, even my father eventually, they understood. They respected the choice, even when it hurt. The real lesson wasn't about medals or military honor or federal investigations. It was simpler than that. Sometimes being a good man means making choices that good men don't want to make. Sometimes protecting what matters requires you to risk everything you care about. I think about that Tuesday morning sometimes, walking into the garage and finding that empty case. How everything changed in that moment. How one pink sticky note ended a marriage and started a career and taught me more about myself than 22 years in the Army ever did. People ask me if I regret it. If I do it again, knowing what it would cost. The answer's always the same. I didn't destroy my marriage over pieces of metal. I discovered who I really was when the metal was gone. Every morning, I look at those medals in their new case and remember. They're not hiding in a garage anymore, not gathering dust where only I can see them. They're out in the open, doing what they were supposed to do, honoring sacrifice, inspiring respect, reminding everyone that some things are sacred. And every morning, I remember something else. The buyer who recognized that serial number and reported it, he could have kept quiet, could have enjoyed his illegal purchase. But he didn't. He did the right thing, just like I did, just like thousands of other veterans do every day when nobody's watching and nobody cares. That's the thing about honor. It's not about the recognition or the ceremonies or the cases full of medals. It's about what you do when nobody's looking, when doing right costs more than you want to pay, when the easy choice is staring you in the face and you choose the hard one anyway. The walnut case sits on my office wall now, and sometimes Rodriguez comes by just to look at it. "Still think it was worth it?" he asked me once. "Colonel," I said, "it was never about worth. It was about right." He smiled. "That's exactly why we hired you." 10 years later, I'm still here in Washington, still working to protect what veterans earned, still learning that the battles worth fighting aren't always the ones you expect. My apartment's bigger now, overlooks the river, and the sound of planes taking off from Reagan reminds me every morning that this country still has people willing to serve. Preston's doing good. Made senior special agent last year, handling fraud cases that sometimes cross into military territory. He calls when he needs advice about cases involving veteran benefits or military contracts. "Dad," he'll say, "how do I know if someone's lying about their service?" And I'll tell him the same thing Rodriguez told me years ago. Listen to what they don't say as much as what they do. Ashley's business turned around. Real estate market came back, and she's doing well. We exchange Christmas cards now. Nothing more, nothing less. Her new husband seems like a decent guy. Showed up to Preston's graduation wearing a flag pin on his lapel. Small gesture, but it told me he gets it. The Lost Honors Recovery Program expanded beyond anything we imagined. We've got field offices in 12 states now, recovered over 3,000 stolen medals, and put 89 traffickers in federal prison. Rodriguez made general last year, but he still stops by my office when he's in town. Still calls me the guy who turned heartbreak into a mission statement. I kept the walnut display case Ashley made. It sits next to the original metal one, both of them catching light from the window. People ask why I need two cases for the same medals. Truth is, they're not the same medals anymore. The ones in the metal case are evidence of what I was. The ones in the walnut case represent what I became. A few weeks ago, a young Marine came to see me. Someone had stolen his grandfather's Purple Heart, sold it online to pay for drugs. We tracked it down, arrested the thief, got the medal back. When I handed it to him, his eyes filled up. "Sir, this meant everything to my grandfather. He carried it through 3 more deployments after he earned it. Said it reminded him why he was fighting." I understood perfectly. "That's what they're for, son. Not to sit in cases or gather dust, to remind us why it matters." He left, and I sat alone in my office looking at those 2 cases. Rodriguez was right about one thing. I had turned my worst day into something meaningful. But it was more than that. I'd learned that sometimes losing everything you think you want is the only way to find everything you actually need. The phone rang. Another case, another veteran's honor stolen by someone who didn't understand what it meant. I picked up the call, grabbed my notepad, and started asking the questions I'd asked 1,000 times before. Who, what, when, where, how much, and most importantly, what did it mean to you? Because that's always the real question. Not what something's worth on eBay or at a pawn shop, but what it means to the person who earned it. what it represents about sacrifice and service and the choice to put something bigger than yourself first. As I hung up the phone and started another case file, I thought about that Tuesday morning 10 years ago. How everything changed because I walked into a garage and found an empty space where my honor used to be. How a pink sticky note led to a federal investigation, a divorce, a new career, and a different understanding of what really matters. Ashley was wrong about those medals being just old metal, but she was right about one thing. I hadn't been looking at them enough, not really seeing them. They'd become familiar, expected, part of the background of my life instead of reminders of who I was and what I'd chosen to be. Now they're impossible to ignore. Every morning when I come to work, they catch the light and remind me why I'm here. Not because I lost a marriage or won a case or built a career, but because some things are worth protecting, even when protecting them costs you everything else you thought you valued. The real insight from all this? Honor isn't something you earn once and keep forever. It's something you choose every day in moments both big and small. It's the choice to do right when doing wrong would be easier, to stand up when sitting down would be more comfortable, to protect what matters even when nobody else seems to care. And sometimes, just sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that ever happened to everyone else who needed someone to understand that integrity isn't negotiable and some things will never be for sale.